After we lost our child, it was a few weeks before we could go back to church. And the week that we decided to go, the Sunday we decided to go to the service that we decided to go, just happened to be baby dedication day. And 30 precious babies dressed so special with their families lined up from one end of the stage to the other. And it was so beautiful and so heartbreaking for us. This is Heart of the Father. I'm Brian West, and this video is about some of the social changes that happened in the aftermath of our loss, in the aftermath of the tragedy. To be real specific, I have several other videos that speak at length to this, but we just simply weren't the same people. We just had a new perspective and we lived in a new reality. And I don't think it could be said more clear than that. We lived in a new reality. I just remember how strange that was. Life was one way, and then afterwards, life was a completely different way. And learning to live in that reality, giving that reality to God. But it came with these, I don't want to use the word eccentricities, but a new perspective that, by the grace of God, most people won't ever have to experience. But we do know that everyone will experience loss in some way, shape, or form, just to the nature of life and death. We know that from the Bible, what Jesus said, that troubles will come, trials will come, suffering will come. So we know that most people will experience suffering. Well, really, in fact, everybody will experience trials, troubles, challenges, or suffering. But I kind of feel like tragedy is that experience, but in a hyper-focused, immediate experience. So suffering over time, trials, challenges, over time, crammed into a single moment. I would say that's what tragedy feels like. And I would say that there's also this incredible sense of injustice and trauma because it's such a focused experience. But all people will experience trials, challenges, troubles, and to some degree suffering. And so many will kind of develop these new perspectives over time. Tragedy, causes a person to have an immediate change in perspective. And it's jarring. It really is. It's traumatic. There's no other way to put it. It's a trauma when a tragedy occurs, an immediate loss of life or trauma that happens instantaneously. And for those that are near it, it causes this indelible change of perspective. It reminds me of the movie. There's a scene actually in Lord of the Rings, and I'm not sure if any of you have seen that. It's an older movie. I guess it's like 20 years old now, but is it actually a trilogy, I believe. So there's 3 of them, Lord of the Rings, and they have this really special moment at the very end. And I just thought it was incredible because at the time I actually had already gotten out of the military. Since I'm prior service, I'm a veteran, and I had gotten out of the military, and I knew when I got out of the military, I could tell that my perspective was shifted. I experienced and saw things that the average person doesn't and won't. And as a result, I had a different perspective than many of my friends I grew up with, who would have absolutely, I wouldn't say, they simply couldn't know. They hadn't experienced it. I'm sure that they could understand to some degree some of those experiences. But my point is this, is that the scene at the time affected me also, and I could understand what it meant. But it was the scene where they had just gotten back and saved everyone. you know, the hobbits had gotten back to the Shire, and they were sitting there having in their local pub after 3 movies had gone by, and they were looking around, so happy to be back that all they wanted the whole time was to be back home, and they were back. And they're sitting there at a table together after experiencing this epic adventure, journey, filled with tragedy, adrenaline, conflict, suffering, challenge. And here they are, they're back home. And they smile at each other, and then they start to look around. And they can see all these people that they knew who are paying no attention to them because they have no idea what they've just been through. They're friends that left and came back, and they're preoccupied. And I remember there's this one clip. It's a guy, and he's just going on loudly, telling others a story about this giant pumpkin that he had. And then it cuts back to the main character hobbits, and they just have this somber look on their face that they share with each other. And it's just this singular moment that I particularly connected with, because there is a feeling of loneliness in the aftermath of tragedy. It's not just that the tragedy happened itself, that the suffering is going on, or that the loss was experienced, or that you're facing some terrible trial of the moment. There's that pain and struggle in and of itself, but then there's this whole other struggle of loneliness, that you have people that might draw near to you, but they don't understand what's going on. They can't, and that feels, and it's not disparaging. It's not something negative against the people who draw near to you. If anything, it's a special thing. They share in the blessing and the wisdom that comes from the house of mourning. We've talked about this, but it still doesn't, in many ways, help this feeling of immense loneliness, because nobody knows. And it's also why, you have these kind of communities of people who kind of form friendships, lifelong friendships, from something like, losing a child. And you might say, well, what a terrible thing to create a relationship and a friendship, but it's actually not. It's being able to relate to someone else who shares in the emotions and the doubt, the confusion, that's all skyrocketed. I mean, it's just the emotions are through the roof, overload. And all you want to do is be able to seek the comfort of someone who can understand, who's been through it. And so I just thought that scene was really special, and spoke to this sense of how a person is changed or altered in their perspective of the world around them. I think I remember this quote. I tried to find it. It was by like Plato or Aristotle. But it's another concept that people just have different perspectives, and some of them they're not interchangeable. It's a totally different kind of thought. Just to let you know, it was I think it was, no one can really attribute who it said it, but I know that Plato or Aristotle said something to the effect of, let's see here. He said, it was this notion that soldiers can't be and think and do the duties of citizens, and citizens can't think and do the duties of soldiers. And again, I think it was Plato or Aristotle, but the only reason I thought of that was just this notion that it's quite impossible. If you had asked me my thoughts regarding someone who lost a child, before experiencing that myself, it's unimaginable. It's unimaginable, which is why nobody talks about it. My wife and I we actually had conversations on how to navigate the emotions of the moment we stopped mentioning we actually had 3 children, not 2, but one of them died. We had to talk it over because at some point we made the decision to simply tell people, well, we have 2 children. And the feelings and the emotions that come with that. Are we, what are we doing? Are we betraying the memory of our child we lost? At some point, we just decided that it was a conversation starter that may not be socially appropriate in meeting and cultivating new relationships. And so it wasn't that we were necessarily ignoring a reality. It was just that we decided to postpone the conversation for a more appropriate time. And that's how we kind of processed that decision. But it's still tough sometimes, when someone says, oh, is this, it's the only one? You got any others at home? Yeah, we got one, we got my daughter, my son. And we decided to postpone that subsequent conversation until it was appropriate, because it was, we did that because of the effect it would have on people. We didn't initially start doing that. We initially started by saying, well, we actually have 3 children, but we lost one. And the effect that it had on a person was terrible. I mean, talk about ruining a person's day. It's like, they want to have some good conversation, maybe meet a new person, meet a new family, and this is the first thing that they hear. So as, relationships grow, there become these opportunities to have more intimate conversation, as you're really creating a stronger relationship, where it would be appropriate to jump into these more extremely intimate and serious experiences of a family. That's what we did. That's how we processed that. Because again, I mean, it's unimaginable for your average person. It's unimaginable. They literally, they don't know what to do with it. They don't know where to organize it in their experience of meeting you. So we, in consideration of others, decided to approach that in a special way that we felt was more appropriate. Others might not. Others may feel that it's necessary. And each person has their own thing. I'm merely explaining that this was, I'm using this as an example to show how, our new perspective was shaping social dynamics for us. That's one example. The other piece to this is I mentioned this in another video, of things like going back to church. It was challenging socially because much of church culture focuses around the fruit of the Spirit of joy. And so oftentimes we hear an emphasis of, people know you're Christians because you're joyful. Therefore, you must always be joyful, so people will always know you're a Christian. Which is, there's a lot of fruit of the Spirit: patience, gentleness, kindness. But I'm not knocking joyfulness. Joyfulness is an incredibly important aspect of our walk. It's what we have. It's a gift we get. But in grief and in mourning, we remember Jesus wept, right? He stayed in it with the people who are experiencing it. And so, the difficulty of going back to a church environment with this new perspective felt like, Frodo and Samwise in the pub, hearing people talk about their biggest pumpkin. I know it's probably a little bit crude, but hopefully, that's something that could be understood. And I know for a lot of people that are watching this, there are people who are actually, navigating tragedy. So you're not alone, and hopefully hearing this is something that allows you to understand you're not alone. And, you have other people who have also been through these really, really tough experiences. And even other believers, we know from the Word that we're encouraged because we know our brothers and sisters around the world are experiencing similar things. But it doesn't mean that we're still not lonely in our experience. And in that place, we press into the Lord. In that place of feeling like we don't fit in because of the loneliness of being, the person closest to that particular tragedy. We have a lot of powerful scriptures, right? We have, let's see here, we have, 1 Corinthians 2:14. This is interesting. The natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are folly to him, and he's not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned. And this speaks to the gap between perspectives. I think that the big thing is, and then 2 Corinthians 1:8, let me just say this real quick. Indeed, we felt that we had received the sentence of death, but that was to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. So there's this different in perspectives, the loneliness that comes, but one that focuses our attention on a dependency. And this really is where we begin to introduce and invite God into our new reality. And this is a different video, the Joseph Paradox. I keep talking about it. It's coming up. It's coming up this week. Where God takes a new reality that happens after tragedy and through suffering and reforms the trajectory of life for good things. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declared the Lord. And that's Isaiah 55:8. And so I just want to say, if you're in your situation, you've experienced tragedy, and you can relate to this notion of loneliness in the experience. I just want to say you're not alone. I'll be praying for you. Subscribe. I pray over the subscriber list. I invite you to do that. I invite you to share your comments below, because it's important for others to understand. There will be a lot of people coming to this channel. People who are trying to understand how to navigate this reality, this part of life, but also others who want to become more resilient in their faith without having to experience these things. And so I invite you to comment and share your own story, share your own insight. Well, this is the end of this video. We went a little bit longer than normal. I want to thank you for joining me. There's a free 7-day devotional. Encourage you to download it. It's in the comments below. And also, if you want to spend more time with some of these insights that came in the aftermath of my own personal loss, I invite you to click on the link for Heart of the Father on Loss, God's Goodness and Grief. And this is the book that I wrote. It's special. It's special. We cover a lot of the insights here, but the book is very concentrated book of insights that the Lord was gracious enough to bless me with. So thank you and bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord be gracious to you. May he make his face to shine upon you. He is close to the brokenhearted and saves those crushed in spirit. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.